And welcome back to the Five Spot. You're joined here with your host, Donovan McNabb. Joined here and going to give you so much great insight with Armando Segura. Let's dive right into it. We had an exciting game last night, with the Monday night football game with the San Francisco 49ers against the Minnesota Vikings. Now, in the very beginning, I know everyone was thinking that this was going to be a blowout. The San Francisco 49ers are a better team. Joey Bosa is probably going to have about 30 sacks. And Kirk Cousins will be frustrated because he's missing his number one receiver. Hold that thought. Minnesota came out on fire. They were establishing the tempo early. I thought Kirk Cousins was efficient, pushing the ball downfield, and also doing it quickly. And so something when you have to think about when you watch the San Francisco 49ers, the thing that makes them special on defense is they're able to collapse the pocket. Everyone knows about Bosa, but there are a lot of defensive linemen that they rotate that are able to apply pressure if it's clogging up the A and the B gap and forcing quarterbacks to hold the football because they have to find a window to throw into. But Kirk Cousins did a great job of throwing with timing, being accurate, allowing his receivers to make plays. Addison had a wonderful day with Jefferson being out. He was able to push the ball downfield, create some explosive plays in the passing game. I thought they were able to run the football when need be and be effective. So big shout out to McConnell for his play calling and being able to diagnose what the defense was doing and be able to attack it. But more importantly, I want to focus on the defense. And I know, Armando, you're probably going to go a little bit of offense of what's going on with San Francisco. But 0 sacks versus Kirk Cousins is something that we just haven't seen from the San Francisco defense. And as the season continues on, this is going to be something that a lot of other coaches and offensive coordinators are going to start to do the same thing to the San Francisco 49ers, Armando.
Yeah, and not just 0 sacks on 45 pass attempts,
right,
which is stunning because let me check my bank account. It's not the same as Nick Bosa's. It's not the same. And Nick Bosa's has a few more zeros in it and a few more other digits in it that mine doesn't have. He is the highest paid defensive player in the NFL. And by his own admission after the game, he had opportunities to make plays in that game, and he didn't. And what resulted was Kirk Cousins diced them up.
Right.
Totally diced them up. He kind of, to be honest with you, in my estimation, he kind of unmasked the 49ers secondary as kind of just pedestrian.
Right.
And I know they're not, but, that wasn't Justin Jefferson, like you said, on that field. And Jordan Addison's very good, outstanding rookie. But my gosh, man, it's like, they made Kirk Cousins Donovan, at one point, Troy Aikman said Kirk Cousins is an NFL top 10 quarterback. And I kind of did this. And then I thought about it. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you got a point. Yeah, absolutely. And the funny thing is this more about Kirk Cousins in that offense. Kirk Cousins is a guy who will not lose a game for you. He's a guy that can maintain and create some explosive opportunities for his guys on the outside. Think about it. When Stephon Diggs played with Minnesota, they had so much of a chemistry where Stephon Diggs became one of the elite wide receivers in the game. Now he left and went to Buffalo. And then Adam Thielen was another guy who came on and had an explosive 4 or 5 year run at the receiver position. They draft Justin Jefferson, and Justin Jefferson comes out and he's one of the top 3 receivers in the NFL. So Addison, being an All-American coming out of college, was, I believe, the number 1 receiver coming out of Pitt before he transferred to USC and doing the same thing at USC. And to know his ability and for him to step into that number 1 role with Jefferson being out, that's a tribute to Kirk Cousins of rewarding the young man and opportunities to be able to create some explosive plays. So top 10 quarterback, I agree with you. I agree with you. Kirk Cousins, again, won't win you many big games, but he also won't lose you any games. And he's steady Eddie. He's able to be efficient, and he gets the ball out quickly. He's a great system quarterback. And we got to remember, I believe, about 2 years ago, before he signed this contract that's now coming up, uh, Kyle Shanahan wanted him in San Francisco. But because they drafted him in Washington, they know what type of quarterback he is, and he fits his system.
So let me ask you this. We've established and we agree top 10 quarterback, right?
Yes.
Top five? Top five?
No.
No?
No. Top, I will say this. I'll say more on the back end of 10. So you're thinking maybe top 8, top 9.
So he is first in the NFL in touchdowns. He is second in the NFL in yards. He is fourth in the NFL in rating, in quarterback rating, which I don't know how you feel about that quarterback rating stat. That's a conversation we might have at some point over beers that you buy. However, if he's top 5 in all of those, why isn't he top 5?
Well, Russell is also in there as far as his numbers are concerned. So are you putting Russell in at the top 10 quarterback right now?
Dude, to me, I am not married to any of these guys. Right. I am married to one woman that I've been married to for a long time. And I'm married to her. I'm not married to rankings of the quarterbacks.
Right.
For me, it changes week to week
True.
and stat to stat because it's a fluid situation. We're not talking about freaking Joe Montana, Dan Marino, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. We're talking about these guys right now. And for me right now, Kirk Cousins is a top 5 quarterback.
I would put him more on the back end, meaning 8, 9. At the highest, I would put him 6 because of the way he's been playing. And I think he's been overlooked this season because they haven't been winning consistently. And so we're focused so much on the 6-0, 5-1. Before it was 4-0 teams, and we're looking at the quarterbacks and we're glorifying them. Now, do I believe that Tua is a top 5 quarterback? Absolutely. Do I think Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback? Absolutely. I think Joe Burrow is coming to the old Joe Burrow. Obviously, he's healed up a little bit from the calf. Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. Josh Allen, people could say he's here and there, but he's also a top 6, top 7 quarterback right now, even by the way the games have been going. And so I just think when it comes to, and it's nothing bad when you say top 10 quarterback. And I want people to understand that when you say top 10 quarterback, that doesn't mean that that's bad for any of these quarterbacks because there's some really good quarterbacks in the NFL.
So top 10 quarterback is unsigned for next year. He's a free agent. I'm thinking that, obviously we have a lot of games to play yet.
Right.
We have a lot of games to play yet. Yikes. But at this point, Kirk Cousins goes on the free agency market.
Money.
Oh my God. He's going to get so much money and he's going to be somebody else's starting quarterback. And how do the Minnesota Vikings find somebody better?
Well, the funny thing is, we just talked about money. Kirk Cousins was the first one to get the guaranteed money. And so he's not only had that guaranteed money, which I think was $84 million. I don't mean to count his money, his bank account, but I mean, he received another contract, which this is the one he's finishing, and he will be up. Now, Kirk Cousins, I believe he's 30, he's about 34, 35 years old or so. And he will get a new contract. But he will be the number 1 free agent, I think, that other teams will be looking for. And like I said, he's a solid quarterback. Once he embeds himself and gets himself embedded into the system, he's comfortable. The guys love being around him. Great personality. We've seen him on that quarterback show. That he's a hard worker. He's dedicated, God-fearing. Like, this is the guy that you want in your locker room to lead your football team.
So are you familiar with Magic Johnson? You heard of Magic Johnson? You know,
I believe I heard of
yeah.
the no look guy.
So watch Magic Mondo here. Um, yeah, San Francisco, all of a sudden they've lost 2 in a row. They're not a dominant team anymore, are they? They're not a super team.
Well, you know what's funny? You bring up super teams because you know that can be in football, basketball, whatever it may be. You know, it's this is the thing that's funny to me, and I'll revert back to a couple of weeks ago that I mentioned that I thought Brock Purdy was an MVP candidate, and I thought he should have been early in that 1-2 area, and people were putting McCaffrey up there, and rightfully so. He scored touchdowns in consecutive games. That's going right now. But I thought Brock Purdy was the type of system quarterback that Kyle Shanahan loves because he can control where he goes with the football, how he plays his footwork, anticipating the throws. Well, that anticipation kind of killed him last night. And so, for as far as super teams are concerned, I would say it's more of the strength of the team and not so much of the big name talent that we see in the NBA. So when it comes to those type of teams, I guess we can label the Philadelphia Eagles a super team. I would still put the Miami Dolphins in that, even though that they haven't beat the upper echelons of teams, just from a talent standpoint. Um, I think San Francisco still is in that conversation because these are correctable mistakes. I go back to the Cleveland Browns game. Even though that Purdy didn't play well, they still had a chance to win at the end with the field goal. And we would be talking right now, the NFC being strong with obviously San Fran and Philadelphia. But now that they have 2 losses, it's now easy to kind of pinpoint, well, maybe Brock Purdy's not the guy. He was Mr. Irrelevant. Maybe they need a first round draft pick to lead them. And I think that they're going to be fine going forward. But it's going to be interesting to see them play against teams like Seattle in their division. It's always back and forth when they play against the Rams because McVay has an idea what they're doing. So it's going forward. I think you heard it here first. I think San Francisco ends up losing 4 to 5 games this year.
Wow. Wow. Well, I mean, it could happen, obviously.
Right.
That would be very disappointing for the San Franciscos. By the way, that was a conversation alley-oop that
yes.
you, James Worthy, did. Very well done, my friend. Very well done. Yes, indeed. I have one little pick to knit with you. When you mentioned the Dolphins as a super team,
I remember I said it's not so much of the names, it's the talent.
Well, yeah, but we're going by team. No, I mean, we're going by team. To me, if you're a super team, you beat the teams that you're supposed to, and they have done that. They've destroyed the bad teams that they've played with a record of 8-25. Those are where their 5 wins have come. Right. But the 2 good teams that they've played, they haven't really matched up so good. They lost to Buffalo in a game that wasn't close. They lost to Philly 2 nights ago in a game that at the end
it could have went either way, but it didn't. It really didn't.
Yeah. So if you're not going to be able to beat a good team, how are you a super team?
Well, again, like I said, it's not so much of the names, it's the talent. And when I watched that Philadelphia game, now remember, there were some calls that were missing in that game. Like that face mask call with Bradbury on Wilson on the sideline on 4th down. That should have been a flag. The flag that they threw on Wilkinson on the push, even the head ref came on and was like, I wouldn't have called
sure?
That. Yeah. It's like I wouldn't have called that one. The Tariq Hill drop on the dig route that would have ended up being another touchdown. So those are type of things that I look at, and there were a few more going forward for the Miami Dolphins that I look at and I go, this game would have been really closer if 2 or 3 of those things would have kind of worked in Miami's favor. Now, nothing you can do to kind of go back to it. Big credit to the Philadelphia Eagles and their defensive line by applying pressure and closing up that pocket on Tua. But then I look at, like teams like the San Francisco 49ers, the Kansas City Chiefs are another one. When and everybody in America knows that Travis Kelce is going to find a way to get the ball, and you still can't stop him. Like I'm talking about corners, safeties, linebackers, double teams. And when Patrick gets to moving, it's like basketball. Travis finds a window to get an opportunity, catches the ball, and then they go right to the suite to see Taylor Swift. So I just think for the way the NFL is right now, when I mean super teams, I don't mean so much of those upper echelon teams, because to me, when you think of the NFC, it's the two guys in the NFC, meaning San Fran and Philly. The AFC, it starts with Kansas City. We can say maybe the Bengals are moving up. We don't know really what's going on in Buffalo. And so their teams all paired away in that other slot. But I would say those are the type of teams that I'm talking about.
So later on in this episode, we're going to be joined by Doug Peterson, the head coach of the Jaguars. And I'm going to tell on you, bro, because you didn't mention the Jaguars in your conversation of teams that are, like maybe super teams. They're 5-2. They're good. They're really good.
Okay, so I will talk to Doug because Doug and I have a relationship, and I picked them as my sleeper team in the beginning of our show in episode, I believe it was episode 1 or 2 when we got a chance to talk to them. I think that they have talent-wise with Ridley, with Kirk, with ETN, Trevor Lawrence on offense, on defense, Josh Allen. The list goes on of players that they have. I think they have the opportunity in that division to win it and also be a threat in the playoffs. But remember, they went on a little run where it didn't really go as well. And I'll talk to Doug about if he was able to get some residency out there in London, because it felt like they were out there the whole season. Jeez. But I just think for Jacksonville, they're in that second tier of grouping where it's paired in the AFC.
Man, I like London. I love London. I don't want to live in London.
Not that much.
No, and they were 2-0 in London, and they have this setup with Wembley Stadium where they're going to play in London every year. Right. God bless them. It's a wonderful place to visit, kind of like New York. Right. But you don't want to live there. so they're, in my estimation, my opinion, no, sorry. I like trees. What can I tell you? Me and trees, we're like that. They've won, I think, 4 games in 19 days. So, and that Sunshine is very good. Their quarterback, I didn't mean the sun. I meant
I do know. I remember the movie, and yes, he definitely, hair and his locks are flowing. And again, he's been battling injury. Coming off of a knee injury in London, then came and played that Thursday night game, I believe, against New Orleans, and was getting outside the pocket and moving. And he's that type of threat where he can throw from the pocket, and he can also get outside the pocket. So I'm excited to talk to Doug about what we're going to be seeing after this bye week, see how healthy they are going into the second part of the season for them after this bye week, and what to expect pretty much from a team standpoint, offense and defense, going forward.
You know what? One quarterback we won't be mentioning as one of the top 10 or top 5.
Now you're going to get everybody in the metropolitan area upset. Go ahead, say it.
I don't think Daniel Jones is in the conversation. I don't think Daniel Jones is a top quarterback on his own freaking team. What do you think about that?
See, all Giants fans want to get mad at me because I talked about Daniel Jones. I will say this about where they are offensively, and I'll go back to the Buffalo game. When Tyrod Taylor stepped in, you have a grown man in the huddle. This young man came out of Virginia Tech, He's played in the league over it's about a decade now. He's in his early 30s, I believe, and he's had experience of understanding new systems, how to play his role, and try to be efficient doing it. When I watched that Buffalo game, the offense just seemed to click a little bit differently. Saquon Barkley was getting out, picking up big yards against Buffalo. I seen Darren Waller. There was a Darren Waller sighting. I seen Hyatt. I seen a quarterback that was spreading the ball around, driving the ball down the field. Now, obviously, everyone knows about that red zone mistake that he made by checking on, with a couple seconds to go with no timeouts, checking to a run on the 2 or 3 yard line to try to give it to Saquon Barkley to punch it in when you just can't do that. But I thought after that mistake, things changed for that team. And watching them against the Washington Commanders, I seen Tyrod Taylor be so effective in the passing game with 18 to 29 for 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, but more importantly, this 0 interceptions. And when you think of what Dayball is all about, it's about creating opportunities, methodically moving the chains, find yourself in third and short situations, and when the opportunity is there to get the ball downfield, do that. And I've seen him spreading the ball around. Waller, 7 catches, 98 yards. Hyatt, 2 catches, 75 yards. Saquon Barkley, 3 catches, 41 yards, and a touchdown. And then you go down the list and you see 1 catch, 1 catch, 1 catch, 1 catch. That's being efficient and getting everybody those opportunities, Armando.
Yeah, and what Tyrod Taylor has been throughout his career, he doesn't throw interceptions.
Right.
Very rarely will he throw interceptions. He takes a lot of sacks because he's very careful. He prefers to take a sack over throw a ball that he's not 100% on. So I would say to you, that's what the Giants need right now. That's better than Danny. He's not dimes. He's worth dimes, but Daniel Jones, not dimes. He's thrown like 6 or 8 interceptions this year, and he's a turnover machine, and he lacks confidence. I'm thinking that the Giants have buyer's remorse on Daniel Jones, and the reason that they went out and signed him to that, and it's going to be about money here. The reason that they signed him to that 4-year, $160 million contract is because of one game.
The Minnesota game?
Exactly. In the playoffs, he went and he balled out, right? I mean, he was amazing. If that, and by the way, that was against the 13-3 team or whatever, 14-2 team, whose defense was horrible. In fact, right after that game, the Vikings fired their defensive coordinator. But in that one game, Daniel Jones threw for 300 yards, threw 2 touchdowns, got the Giants a playoff victory. If that doesn't, and then the next week, by the way, he soiled his pants, but against the Eagles. But what I'm saying is, if that game doesn't happen, maybe the Giants sign him, but it's not for $40 million. It's not, oh my God, he won us a playoff game. He's a playoff game quarterback. No. He's a guy, not a guy, but he's not exactly $40 million. And all of a sudden, now they could get rid of him after 2 years if they wanted to, instead of after 3 years, because that's how long it's going to take to get out from under that contract.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to call him just a guy. I think when I look at Daniel Jones, I go back his last 3 years, and remember, he was, I want to say, a turnover machine, but he was up there as far as the upper echelon of quarterbacks with turnovers, fumbles, interceptions, constant mistakes. Those particular things were what Daniel Jones' career looked like. And then he had a good year last year. It wasn't a great year. He only had 15 touchdowns or so passing. I think Justin Fields had more touchdowns than he had. And so people get on Justin Fields, but then Daniel Jones survived because the team actually played inspired. The thing about the Giants, and it's always been much more about their defense. Because remember, Eli Manning threw a lot of interceptions too, but it was their defense with Michael Strahan and all those guys. Their defense played well in the game last week against the Washington Commanders. I mean, held Washington to 76 yards rushing, sacked Sam Howell 6 times in that game, held the Washington Commanders to 1 for 15 on third down. So again, when your defense is playing inspired football, because they know offensively they're seeing explosive plays and Tyrod Taylor inspiring them a little bit, giving them a little bit of juice. They see Saquon Barkley running the football effectively. That defense now can peel their ears back and get after the quarterback. And that's what I'm seeing now from this football team. Now, we've seen backups come in and all of a sudden the team elevates and people want to talk so much about, oh, well, they're better with the backup in. We've seen it in Dallas with Cooper Rush, remember, last year. But I just think for this football team, if Tyrod Taylor will play 2 more weeks, and he plays the way he played against the Washington Commanders, it's going to be a really hard decision for Daboll to bring Daniel Jones back into the fold. Now, I do believe this before you go, Armando. I don't believe you should lose your starting job due to injury. When you come back off an injury, I think you should get your starting job back and prove that you should be out there.
Yeah, Wally Pipp would agree with you, but there was Lou Gehrig. And so just too bad. Just sorry. This is how I view it. I don't think that the Giants should bench and discard Daniel Jones.
Right.
But I think he would benefit from collecting himself on the bench for a little while longer.
I think he's doing that. Yeah, I think he's doing that right now.
Fair. Because that dude's got like deer in the headlights look every time he's on the field with that offensive line that was substandard.
Right.
Meanwhile, Tyrod Taylor with that same substandard offensive line, they had neither tackle this last week, neither starting tackle.
Right.
He's just playing. He didn't seem to care. And here's the telling part. After the game, Brian Daboll was asked, so is Tyrod Taylor your quarterback or is Daniel Jones the guy afterwards? And he said, I would just say that right now, Tyrod Taylor played well today. What didn't I hear him say? I didn't hear him say Daniel Jones is our guy. I didn't hear him say, media guy, you're an idiot. Don't ask me these dumb questions. We paid $160 million for Daniel Jones. I didn't hear him say that. Right. I heard him leave it up there in the air. And that tells me personally, that's like when I heard that, it was like alarms going off in my head. Whoop, 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 whoop. Quarterback controversy.
I won't create that right now. I think, and that's why I say another 2 weeks with Tyrod Taylor. Let's see how things move forward for the New York Giants. Now, when you look at their schedule is not faring. It's not comfortable for them at this particular point. Okay. Now, as far as where the Giants are going, I think with Tyrod Taylor, if he continues to stay efficient, Darren Waller elevates his game. We see a little bit more Saquon Barkley because this is a big season for Saquon Barkley. If Saquon Barkley can finish this season healthy and the way they're playing, I think now he becomes in that top 2, top 3 of free agency. Because I think also there are going to be more running backs on that market that are in that trade look or possibly a free agent. I think Austin Eckler is in that. I think Derrick Henry will be in that trade conversation. But I think for the New York Giants, in order for them to continue with relevancy, it's got to be with Tyrod Taylor instead of Daniel Jones right now. And if that happens, Brian Daboll's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders.
I I am totally on board with you. By the way, you mentioned Derrick Henry there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the Tennessee Titans have just ching ching. We've checked out of the season. We're done. Bye. See you next year. And the
Well,
trade deadline is coming, man. The trade deadline is coming, and they traded Kevin Byard yesterday.
yeah.
Oh, that's
I mean,
bad.
not only that, they trade Kevin Byard, which is he's a solid safety, but you trade him to the Philadelphia Eagles. AJ Brown has more receiving yards than any of all the receivers from the Tennessee Titans combined. They're still trying to figure out if Levis is a NFL quarterback at this point, or is it Malik Willis? Ryan Tannehill will be also on that trading block probably at the end of the season. So as far as what Vrabel right now is concerned, I think they're just trying to keep their head above water because remember we talked about the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think the team that in that division that people are not talking about that I quiet as kept may be the sleeper in that whole division is the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud right now is number one as far as rookie of the year is concerned in my eyes. He's efficient. He's not turning the football over. He's making them relevant on offense and defensively. D'Amico Ryan has that defense going. So I just think when you think of where Tennessee is going at this point, I mean, with Jacksonville playing well, with the Texans playing well, the Indianapolis Colts are super competitive right now, and they don't even have their quarterback that they had that they drafted in the first round. Gardner Minshew, he can protect the football a little bit better, but they're in games. So I just think right now for where the AFC South is at this particular point, we need to keep our eye on that division because I think that's going to go down to the wire.
I'm sad for the Tennessee Titans. They were the number one seed in the AFC a couple of years ago. That means you're the best team in the conference during the regular season.
Right.
And now they're just a shadow of themselves and they're well coached. That hasn't changed. They have become, like you mentioned, the farm system for the Philadelphia Eagles. If we got a really good player, let's see if we can trade him to Philadelphia because
exactly
we need the Eagles to go to the Super Bowl. So let's trade them AJ Brown and let's trade him one of our defensive captains who, is a two-time all-pro. Let's do that too. I don't know. The Eagles, they need a running back maybe. Hey, we got Derrick Henry. Why not? Yeah, let's do. I mean, I don't know, man. It's very depressing that if you're a Titans fan going forward, and like you mentioned, all those other teams in the division, they got a little something going on, and the Titans got a little nothing going on.
And coming up next, Doug Peterson will be joining us here on the show to talk a little bit of the Jacksonville Jaguars, their plans going forward, and a lot more. Doug, welcome to the show. So happy to have you. Let's dive right into it. When you came over to Jacksonville, obviously we all know with Urban Meyer, former coach who was there, and the culture that was there, what things did you try to change early?
The biggest thing, Donovan, was just getting the players to trust me, trust the next head coach was probably the biggest thing that I needed to, probably the biggest hurdle that I needed to jump across, and it took time. It took time that first off season for them to, the players to really buy into me and how I operated. But I think they realized relatively quickly that, number one, I was a straight shooter. I was honest with them. I was open with them. Told them exactly how things were going to happen in the off season, told them exactly how training camp was going to go. And then once we got into the course of the regular season, they begin to kind of trust that, right. And not only trust in me, but also trust in themselves. And we were able to overcome a lot of adversity, the first half of the season last year to make it to the postseason last year. But, I think the number one thing for us was just gaining trust, with me as the new head coach.
Look, I'll go back to, and I'll label you almost as the baby quarterback whisperer. Obviously, being in Kansas City, where you have Patrick Mahomes there, going to Philadelphia, drafting Carson and bringing Jalen in, working with those two young guys when they were babies, to come over to Trevor Lawrence, where he's probably got one of the best hairs. I mean, I wish I had some of that hair to be on the head. But the things that you were able to do with them early, to see where they are now, the Patrick Mahomes, the Jalen Hurts, and now Trevor Lawrence. What was your mindset coming in with those guys, and what path did you put them on?
Yeah, Donovan, as you know, coming in first year as a young player, as a rookie, you got a new staff. I mean, you had obviously, you and I, we had Andy Reid, right, who I was familiar with, but it was new to you, and you were the rookie coming in there. But kind of leaning on those moments, for me, it was about keeping things simple for the quarterback. Not exposing him to a lot of things. Installing the offense and getting him comfortable with the plays and the terminology and all that, but keeping it real simple in his mind and teaching him progression, teaching him, where to go with the football, kind of giving him those half field reads, right? The single high safety, let's go here. If it's two high safeties, let's go here, and keeping it very basic and simple. And then as we grew, we could throw more stuff on them. And we did that with Carson in Philly. Obviously, Jalen, you see what Jalen Hurts is doing now. He's really taken off and playing extremely well. And then our quarterback, Trevor, is one of the reasons that sort of I was excited about, coming to Jacksonville, was working with Trevor, and really feel like he's a talented quarterback. He's got a good arm. He moves well. He thinks football. And again, with him, just keeping it simple, keeping that first year and just letting him kind of evolve with the offense and let him grow with the offense. And then now in year two, we can expose him to more things. We can have dialogue, throughout the course of the week, and let him sort of cut things loose and let his talent now show on the field. And that's been kind of the biggest thing going into the second year.
Wow. So baby quarterback whisperer is one of the things that I didn't have on my questions.
Check the box.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, I do believe that once upon a time you baby quarterback whispered a guy named Donovan McNabb. So what was that like when you're basically teaching a young guy that just came in, a first round pick, that you want to help, but you don't want him to replace you, basically? How did that go, Doug?
Armando, you got to realize we were in Philadelphia, man.
Right.
We were both treading water, I think, that first year. And it was a little bit of survival mode. But, I'll tell you this. I mean, I remember Donovan was just a sponge when he came in. He wanted to learn everything and really, listen, the Eagles drafted Donovan for a reason. He was going to be the starter. There's no, let's not fool ourselves here. Donovan was going to be the starter. I just sort of warmed the seat until he was ready to take over. And so for me, it was a matter of, starting a few games, but also at the same time, sort of, it was a West Coast offense that Coach Reid, and I were bringing from Green Bay, and, obviously teaching Donovan that. And then, again, it's the same thing. Let Donovan's talent, let his personality take over that offense. And that's what you saw, not only the back half of that year in 1999, but then again in 2000, and all the NFC East championships and the NFC conference championship games, and then taking them to the Super Bowl. And you just saw what Donovan was able to do. But again, that offense was shaped around what Donovan could do. And that's the success. And then you bring in the pieces, right? You bring in the pieces around. You have a great offensive line. You play great defense, which the Eagles had back in the early 2000s. And, it's just about just driving the ship. And that's one of the things that, I've appreciated, and just watching Donovan's career as a player, just the success he had just doing that.
Let's add to that of seeing Trevor Lawrence and building this offense around his strengths and his ability. And then you talk about go and get pieces. When you brought Calvin Ridley in, when you first made the trade, obviously he was out of football at that particular point. But when he came back, what did you see in the first 2-3 months with Calvin Ridley in this offense of how explosive he can be with Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, the number one thing that I saw was just how eager and excited he was to get back out on the football field, and rightfully so. He knew the mistake he made, but he was just so humbled to be on the football field. But then he brought a work ethic that has really translated to the rest of the guys, and how hard he goes in practice. And obviously, there's a speed factor. There's an element of, as we say, taking the top off the defense and stretching corners and stretching safeties that, I haven't seen that probably since the days of Deshaun Jackson, really back in Philly. And, so that's what he's been able to bring to us, and working with Trevor and getting comfortable, those two guys getting on the same page has really kind of opened up our offense, particularly the passing game, in ways that, we probably didn't see last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, Doug, your team started out 1-2, and then 19 days, 4 wins. What changed in those 19 days for you?
Yeah, Armando, I think the number one thing is, our London trip. We went over there in week 4, after the 1-2 start. Went over there in week 4, and really we knew we were going to spend 10 days over there. And when you're just in one spot for 10 days, you kind of become closer as a team. Guys hang out all the time for those 10 days, and really we just needed to, I think, just refocus ourselves after the first couple of weeks of the season, and start to form an identity, so to speak. And so, obviously, we beat a good Falcons team, a good Bills team over there, and I think, to me, that those 10 days really kind of galvanized our team, brought us a little bit closer. And then when we came back, we played a really good, Colts AFC South division opponent team. And then on the road Thursday night in New Orleans, which, Donovan, as you know, is a hard place to play, and get a win there. So credit the guys for sort of the resilient effort. It hasn't been pretty or perfect, but at the same time, bottom line is we've won those games, and now it's a matter of keeping that momentum going.
That last part of the game against the New Orleans Saints, how big was that for your football team to understand how to close the game, and to be able to seal victories that will go further? I mean, I think when you look at where this could lead you toward the end of the year in those tight games, how big was that last part of that game?
I think it's huge, Donovan. I think a year ago, we may have lost that football game, just not knowing how to finish, not knowing how to really close out, an opponent like that. And Trevor and Christian making that it was a short pitch and catch, but Christian taking the ball in for the end zone and into the end zone. And then defensively, the Saints go all the way down the field. They get inside the 5-yard line, and they've got 1st and goal at the 5, and our defense rising up to the occasion. And just learning how to do that gives your team confidence, I think, moving forward. Understanding that if we're in those situations again, that we can lean on that, we can learn from that, and you're right, it does give us a lot of confidence moving forward, the rest of the season.
So, what's the next stage of development for Trevor Lawrence, Doug?
I think we just got to keep continuing what we're doing. I definitely can get better with some situational things. We still have the costly, red zone turnovers that we've got to eliminate. There's still the fringe area, just understanding when we got points on the board through the field goal, with Brandon McManus now being able to kick, field goals, just understanding that and really elevating his game that way. Trevor does a great job of managing, the offense. Now he's got to take it and just run with it and let it be his, and, demand from the other guys, excellence. As you know, Donovan, you're not going to be perfect, but at the same time, you can still demand an excellence from everybody that brings their level of play up. And that's where Trevor's headed. That's where he's going. And that's what we're excited here in Jacksonville, that we've got that quarterback, not only currently, but also for the future.
Last question, Doug. Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously big game coming off a bye week. You guys get a chance to heal up a little bit. What should we expect in this particular game?
Well, Pittsburgh's always played great defense, and they still have a wonderful defense. These guys are aggressive up front. It's a dominating front seven. They play the old school kind of 3-4 defense, and they're active on the back end. They got great players and great talent. So we know it's going to be a physical football game. It's hard to run the ball. Loud environment again on the road. Offensively, we gotta take care of the football. We gotta sustain drives, and we gotta score points at the end of those drives. And I think defensively, we match up pretty well with this team. Najee Harris is a good back, and we've got to be able to surround and corral him, get him on the ground, tackle, and really, make the young quarterback have to put it in the air. When we can do that, I think we can hopefully let our pass rushers, rush the passer and get him off his spots. But this is a good football team. They're coming off a great win, at LA this past Sunday, and you're right. We've had a couple days here to kind of rest some players and get some guys healthy for not only for this game, but for the rest of the season.
We want to thank Coach Doug Peterson for joining us here at the 5 Spot. Great interview. We had a lot of good times together in Philadelphia, and so happy to see the success that he's having in Jacksonville.